Hi, and welcome to today's Daily Chronicle. Today is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. The Ben Stiller's showbiz family. There was separation. There was little separation between home and stage. When both your parents are in show business, you get used to being stopped on the street. Just ask Ben Stiller, whose parents, Jerry Stiller and Ann Mira, formed a hit comedy duo in the 1960s and 70s. My mom usually wouldn't want to talk to people for a long time, and my dad would talk to people forever, Stiller says. As kids, you feel that your parents' attention is being taken away from you. Mira died in 2015, and her husband followed in 2020. After his father's death, Ben Stiller found a stash of audio recordings his dad had made of his conversations and arguments with Mira about their marriage and their act. Those tapes are at the center of Stiller's new documentary about his parents. Stiller and Mira. Nothing is lost. Stiller, who says his father was always more committed to comedy than his mother, who studied under Uta Hagen and dreamed of being a serious actor. They had been married for several years, both struggling to make it in show business. When Jerry Stiller had the idea to create short comedy sketches together, he drew into doing this comedy act, his son says, and that changed their lives. The comedy team of Stiller and Mira would go on to appear on The Ed Sullivan Show more than 30 times. Later, Jerry Stiller co-starred on Seinfeld, playing Frank Costanza, George's father. Meanwhile, Ben Stiller was forging his own path in Hollywood, both as an actor and a filmmaker. Stiller is currently the executive producer and director of the TV series Severance. About a company that makes its employees get a procedure on their brain that separates the memories of their home life and the memories of their work life. The premise is almost the direct opposite of the lifestyle his parents modeled while he was growing up. Their marriage, their relationship, was also what their act was about. Stiller says, so I think that concept of the separation is actually very interesting to me because it's something I've never had. On Jerry Stiller's desire to be loved by everyone, I think I can identify. I think most actors have a certain sense of wanting approval. He talked about it very openly, he said. I need the love from the audience. It's kind of armchair psychology. But he didn't get a lot of nurturing from his parents when he was a kid. They fought a lot, and they were very poor, and nobody was encouraging him to go into show business. He went to Syracuse University, and he performed in plays, and he found his people, and this warmth and acceptance in the theater, and he was always connecting with people. I think he loved talking to people. He loved when fans would come up and say hi to him, and it meant something to him. And my mother had a very different relationship with it. on the part of having celebrity parents. I remember when they played nightclubs in New York, and that was really exciting for us. We get to stay up and late, hang out with the grown-ups. Interesting, funny people coming in and out of the house. They would have these New Year's Eve parties at their apartment in the late 70s and 80s, and they were just so amazing. As kids, it was really fun to be around. I loved going on sets when they would go out to LA to be on the Paramount Studios lot. Made me want to make movies. Being around that, it was very clear early on that's what I wanted to do. It was a lot of fun times and more interesting to my sister and I than school, for sure. On sneaking out while his parents traveled for work. Our nanny Hazel took care of us basically since I think the time that I was probably about 4 years old. She was from Jamaica, and she had 7 kids of her own, and they lived in Brooklyn. And we became very close with her family, with her kids, because some of them were Amy and my age. My parents would go far away for like a 2-week stint to LA to do whichever game show or Love Boat or whatever it was. Hazel was so sweet. She knew she had to be the disciplinarian and keep us in line. But it was kind of like a free-for-all a little bit when we were on our own. We'd stay up late sometimes, trying to sneak out. As we got older and became teenagers, then there were other things going on. Like my sister started going to Studio 54 when I think she was like 17 and I was 13. And she would take me to Studio 54 with her friends, and they would sneak us in. They put me in yellow and green polka-dotted Fire Trudy shirt and an army jacket and these Mickey Mouse sunglasses. And they put this outfit on me, and we went up, and the bouncer, Mark, saw us, and he pointed to us and he said, "Come on, in." And we were in. And that happened a few times. So I think I was 13. On calling his dad when he had a bad LSD trip. I took LSD once when my parents were out doing the Love Boat once. I was the guy who called his parents on LSD. I called them up in LA because I was scared. I was having a bad trip, and it was the only time I ever did LSD. My mom got really mad at me, and my dad was actually much nicer and kind of tried to talk me down. And he said, "I understand what you're going through." When I was 11 years old, I smoked a Pall Mall cigarette, and I was sick for 2 days. And I was like, "No, Dad, you don't understand. I don't understand what reality is." But he was great. He was actually great about it. On his father being cast as Frank Costanza on Seinfeld. It was life-changing for him. He was a very lovable guy, and people just loved seeing him out all this emotion and kind of this tamped-up rage that he had inside in a very funny way. And I think the fame that it brought in because of Seinfeld was such a phenomenon. Was like nothing he had ever experienced before. It was fulfilling for him, I think. A childhood dream of being someone who could be funny on his own. For me, I was kind of just starting to experience success on my own. So I was happy that my dad was working and that he was in this show, and that was such a phenomenon. There was never a competition between us. My mom was the one who sort of was, I think, having to deal with not having that kind of success at that point. But for her, I don't think it was as important thing as relevant to her own personal happiness. Though I think she would have liked to have worked more as an actor. What does 15 look like? Teens and former child actors weigh in online after Megyn Kelly comments. Former child actress took to social media to express outrage after Megyn Kelly seemed to downplay the youth of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. Former child actress, as well as teenage girls around the country, have posted photos of themselves at 15 years old, after journalist Megyn Kelly seemed to downplay the youth of Jeffrey Epstein's victims on her podcast. In a discussion with News Nation host Bataya Ungar on the Megyn Kelly Show on November 12th, Kelly stated that she knows somebody very close to this case who told me from the start that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. He was barely into the legal type. He liked 15-year-old girls. Kelly continued, I'm not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts that he wasn't into 8-year-olds. But he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby. The age of consent in the United States ranges from 16 to 18-year-olds, depending on the state. It is not legal for an adult to engage in sexual activity with a girl below 16 years old in any U.S. state. NPR has reached out to Megyn Kelly for comment. NPR will update this story if we receive a response from Kelly. Women and girls react to Kelly online. Many on social media were prompted to insist that 15-year-olds are children. Actress and activist Cynthia Nixon weighed in on Instagram. Megyn Kelly, I have a question for you. From one mother to another, she said, if Jeffrey Epstein were still alive, would you be comfortable with your teenage daughter being alone with him in his mansion? And please don't say 15 is barely legal. It is 100% illegal, and you know that. She was joined by celebrities who were former child actresses, like Christina Ricci. On her Instagram story, Ricci posted, "This woman is a danger to children." The Instagram story has since expired and is no longer online. Valerie Bertinelli, who starred in the sitcom One Day at a Time, shared a picture of herself at 15 with the caption, "This picture was taken in 1975. I'm 15. I'm a child." I'm going to say this a little louder for those in the back row. I'm 15. I'm a child. She ended with a call to action, encouraging others to flood the internet with pictures of all of us at 15. The Hollywood actresses were joined by actual teenagers, including a girl who posted a TikTok video from an account called Cheering for Change and said her name is Eloise and that she's a 14-year-old. She said she wanted to respond to Kelly's comment with a reality check from a literal child. The minute adults start defending predators by debating the age of a child, you're not protecting the truth. You're protecting the predator. And you shouldn't need a freshman to tell you that. survivors advocating for the release of the Epstein files. Some of the Epstein survivors, who are now adults but say they were 17 or younger when they were abused, have taken leading roles in pressuring both President Trump and Congress to release the full Department of Justice files on Epstein. On Tuesday, 8 of them were posted a national PSA, which called for the release of all the Epstein files. This was done in partnership with the World Without Exploitation, a national coalition of organizations working to end human trafficking. After showing photos of women of ages 14 to 17, the video ends with a call for justice. To release the full Department of Justice files on Epstein. On Tuesday, 8 of them voted a national PSA, which called for the release of all the Epstein files. This was done in partnership with the World Without Exploitation, a national coalition of organizations working to end human trafficking. After showing photos of the women at ages 14 to 17, the video ends with a call for justice. It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness. On a World Without Exploitation's website, it urges Americans to call on members of Congress to vote for the Epstein File Transparency Act. By mandating the release of these files while safeguarding the privacy of survivors, the legislation seeks to shed light on enablers, co-conspirators, and institutional protections that allowed Epstein's operation to flourish. It, regardless of wealth or power, is above the law. The response to Kelly's comments preceded the nearly unanimous vote in the House of Representatives to publicly release the full slate of the Department of Justice files on Epstein's child sex trafficking. The president, in a reversed position, had previously stated that he would sign it if it passed the House and Senate. Right-wing media shrugs off latest Epstein document release. What do thousands of pages of newly released material reveal about the well-documented relationship between convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and President Donald Trump? Not much of anything, according to some right-wing influencers who have long been clamoring for the government to release more information about Epstein and his crimes. To me, these are nothing burgers, even if they're even real. Pro-Trump podcaster John Harold said on his Badlands Media Rumble livestream on Wednesday. Harold gained an audience in the wake of the 2020 election after spreading QAnon-adjacent conspiracy theories. His fellow Badlands media personality, Brian Lupo, took a slightly different view on his own live stream this week. The emails didn't exactly say nothing, he claimed, but they show that Trump was informing on Epstein and his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, who was serving a 20-year prison term for helping Epstein sexually abuse underage girls. Epstein died by suicide while in jail during the first Trump administration. My take on this: Epstein and Maxwell are trying to figure out who's a mole or a rat or an informant in their circle of friends, Lupo said, referring to an email in which Epstein called Trump a dog that didn't bark. The White House has denied that Trump was an informant. Epstein looms large for many conspiracy theorists, including QAnon believers. He's seen as a prime example of the satanic cabal of pedophiles they believe are entrenched among the world's most powerful people. QAnon adherents think Donald Trump is destined to defeat that cabal. Trump has acknowledged that he and Epstein were once friendly, but fell out decades ago. He's denied any knowledge of Epstein trafficking of underage girls. While one of the newly released emails suggests Trump did know about Epstein's behavior, some right-wing media figures say the new disclosures prove Trump did nothing wrong. They're claiming it's a hoax. They're claiming that the Democrats are cherry-picking the things that make Trump look the worst, and that these things prove that he didn't actually do anything wrong, and that he's not a criminal, and that he was actually gathering information for the FBI on Epstein, said Mike Rothschild, an independent journalist and author who has written extensively about conspiracy theories and QAnon. He said that is very different from the story they were singing years before that, which is that if we just bring down the Epstein ring, all the Democrats are going to go down with him. More prominent Democrats are communicating with Epstein in the newly released emails. Still, another common thread on the right is that the release is a distraction by Democrats. They think that the Epstein thing is something that is going to distract you from their failures. Although the Epstein thing, all it's really doing is exposing more Democrat failures. Vince Colognes, a radio host and the editorial director of the Daily Caller, said on his Rumble live stream on Thursday. That echoes President Trump's Truth Social posts, accusing Democrats of using Epstein to deflect from fallout over the government shutdown. On Friday, he called on the Justice Department to investigate Democrats mentioned in the emails. Attorney General Pam Bondi said she was appointed to federal prosecutor to lead a probe. Meanwhile, some prominent influencers and conservative media outlets are essentially ignoring this week's release of documents. They already know that their fans are on board 100% with whatever Trump does, Rothschild said. There's nothing for them here. At the same time, the emails are fueling new speculation on both the right and to the left as people race to interpret Epstein's often cryptic language. To Rothschild, that is a fool's errand. Jeffrey Epstein was not the most trustworthy person. You're taking him at his word because you want to believe him when he says things that are either good about Trump or bad about Trump, he said. It's absolutely maddening circular discourse, and it gets us absolutely nowhere.